The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Oh, hell no!
Whatever.
The following program contains opinions expressed by the Dead Zone. If you find this broadcast offensive, lighten up, candy ass.
What?
Oh my gosh.
It's a radio show.
Hell yeah! That's what I'm talking about.
Power up request received. Initiating systems. Powering up transmitters. Welcome to the Dead Zone.
Wait a minute.
Hear this.
WDZI Digital Broadcast.
December 5th, Dead Zone Paranormal Radio Show. We got a good friend coming back tonight. She hasn't been on the show for over a year. Seika Sjka-Half.
Oh my god.
Mrs. Mooney of Halfpenny Dreadfull. We're going to talk to her and see what she's been up to. Also, we're going to have Michelle on, doing the paranormal news as always. And this one, coming up, this is a track by She, Comatose. Check it out. Are you in a band or know of a band that is currently unsigned and looking for airplay for free? We want to hear from you. One of the main goals of the show is to help promote up-and-coming bands and artists as well as our paranormal community. Getting your name out there can be tough, especially these days. Shoot us an email, deadzonebooking@gmail.com. If your music fits our genre, hard rock, 80s, 90s metal, and new metal, we want to help.
Millions of people are affected by the Para-X bug.
I realize that it is something that will stay with me for the rest of my life and long into the afterlife as well.
If you have the Para-X bug, there is hope.
With a nightly visit to the Para-X website and intensive past life regression therapy, I can control it.
Even with the Para-X bug, I can still lead an active life of radio show hosting, paranormal investigating, evidence checking, attending conferences, book writing, keeping up with the latest technology, and still keep my 40-hour-a-week day job.
If you think that you have the Para-X bug or know someone who might, visit para-x.com. And remember, you are not alone.
I am not alone.
I
am not alone.
The Para-X bug may cause the urge to chase shadow people, visit exotic haunted locations, adopt a pugwudgie, or spend all of your time trying to figure out the laws and principles of paranormal investigation. Listening to Para-X may increase these effects.
Sudden visions of full-body apparitions, or feeling the covers being pulled off you in the middle of the night by unseen hands, may also be signs of exposure to the Para-X bug.
The use of Para-X may be habit-forming, and an overwhelming desire to provoke spirits may be a serious side effect. If these symptoms last more than 4 hours, you should quickly consult a trusted witch and have her cast a "What the hell are you thinking?" spell on you. If symptoms persist, please contact the Para-X Radio Network Homeland Security Team for further instructions.
The Para-X bug may cause urges for late-night speaking with spirits and ghosts. Listening to Para-X may increase these effects. Overwhelming desire to try provoking a spirit may be a serious side effect. Those with Para-X bug effects lasting more than 4 hours should consult Para-X or see a professional. Sudden outbursts at the mention of orbs may be a sign of exposure to the Para-X bug. Use of Para-X may be habit-forming. Use caution when engaging in Para-X chat.
Paranormal news.
Hey guys, so I've been gone for a while. Haven't done any recordings for quite a while now, but I'm back. And I'm on my favorite website, Coast to Coast AM, where I found an article titled, "What Happened When I Wore a Cursed Crystal for a Week." Now, this was dated September 1st, and this was taken off of the website Vice. And it talks about how there are horror stories that are being shared on TikTok, saying that Moldavite is a cursed crystal, and that horrible things will happen if you wear it. So this person decided to put it to the test and wear Moldavite for a week and a ring. When Moldavite sales skyrocketed over the past year, Michelle Ferris knew right away that it was because of TikTok. For a long time before TikTok, it was not popular except among specific collectors, the Seattle crystal shop owner told me. At the peak of the Moldavite craze, Ferris went from selling one Moldavite every few weeks to selling about 5 pieces a day. In the world of crystal healing, Moldavite is a tektite known for heralding powerful transformations that will invite things into people's lives and put people on their highest path. When Ferris first started wearing Moldavite, she experienced a huge surge of energy, she said. Apparently, this feeling is so common that there's a name for it. It's called Moldavite flush. The purported power of Moldavite may be how it gained initial traction on TikTok. Then came the trove of videos that have given the gemstone an especially bad rap for stirring shit in people's lives. In these videos, TikTokers tearfully document terrible news supposedly caused by Moldavite, from car crashes to severed relationships and even death of family members. Stephanie Porth, a student in New York, posted one such TikTok video. In the 6 months since she started wearing a Moldavite ring, her dog died and she lost some important people in her life. Porth's video, which has racked up 3.5 million views since June, naturally rattled some dog owners in the comments section, but she doesn't actually believe that Moldavite is cursed. Porth noted that a lot of people saw her video as a negative thing, but they don't understand the situation that's surrounding it, she said. In fact, Porth thinks Moldavite has served its purpose of introducing more positive things into her life. Her family adopted a rescue dog, and she made a new friend. Keegan, a 19-year-old in Nashville who prefers to just go by her first name to keep her professional life separate from her TikTok persona, shares similar sentiments. Moldavite getting a bad reputation is also kind of my fault, and I do feel bad about it, she said. In April, the TikToker made a series of viral videos about the bad things that happened to her after wearing her Moldavite earrings. No more boyfriend, she declared in tears in one TikTok video shot in her car wearing her Moldavite earring. That video has since been viewed 6.8 million times. No more parent, she announced in another video with her standing in front of a hearse. That one got a whopping 10 million views. Keegan told me that she was having a breakdown in her car after ending things with her boyfriend when she suddenly recalled the Moldavite is cursed meme, so she whipped out her phone and made a TikTok video about it. Similarly, the video about her stepfather's passing was a humorous way to cope with her loss. After her videos blew up, she found herself having to explain to panic-stricken viewers that Moldavite isn't actually jinxed. Her stepfather's health had been deteriorating because of brain cancer, and her relationship had been facing circumstantial challenges. I think about it a lot. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I admitted to the internet that I blamed all this on a rock, she confessed. I'm sorry if I just read that sounding kind of stupid. I apologize. The way that I joked about things gave it a negative reputation where people are like, it's going to kill everyone. And no, it won't do that. Now she sees Moldavite as a big inside joke among TikTokers for when something bad happens. Molly Donlan, a Reiki master and yoga teacher who incorporates crystal healing in her practice, wears Moldavite on a necklace almost every day. I see crystals as crossing guards helping you walk across the street to the next part of your life, she said, adding that crystals are not there to drop bombs in your life. I always like to describe the purpose of Moldavite is to help get you from where you are to your life's purpose, said Donlan. So it really supports you in making changes that are in alignment with your soul's calling. Donlan also thinks that a lot of the claims on TikTok are wildly exaggerated. Ferris, the crystal shop owner, agrees. Crystals, whether it's Moldavite or not, are never going to work against you, intentionally harm others, or cause devastating situations, she said. While crystal enthusiasts have defended Moldavite's cursed reputation, I was still itching to test it. Will it F up my life or stoke good fortune? I wanted to know. So I bought a Moldavite ring, fashioned it into a necklace pendant, and wore it for a week. Here's what happened. Day 1. My first day of wearing the Moldavite necklace was massively uneventful. Day 2. I went for a run with my Moldavite ring, and on my way back, I think I kicked a frog. In case the significance of this encounter isn't clear, I'm terrified of frogs. I didn't dare to look at the ground to confirm my fear and sprinted away in a moment of panic. I also tried and failed to pet a stray neighborhood cat. Pretty devastating for someone who likes to think of herself as an animal whisperer. Day 3. Again, nothing eventful happened to me on this day. My editor did call in sick, and while the cursed crystal didn't bring me mishaps, I did wonder if it was working its curse on the people around me. Day 4. Dinner with friends sent me into a spiral over COVID-19 paranoia because I had been suffering from a stubborn sore throat, and my friend was sharing stories of COVID-19 cluster at her workplace. That night, I decided to get tested at the doctor's clinic. Day 5. This weekend was supposed to be filled with morning walks, Zoom interviews, miscellaneous errands, and meetings with friends. It was gearing up to be lots of fun, but also scarily hectic. After taking a COVID-19 test that required me to be quarantined for about a week, almost all of my plans were wiped clean. For the first time since I can remember, my weekend was completely free from plans. I was homebound, of course, but free. My weekends, I realized, have been bursting at the seams with activities and errands, leaving me barely any time to just sit and simmer. This quarantine weekend was shaping up to be the rest and relaxation that I sorely needed. Day 6. By Sunday, I was well rested, but a little restless, which was just the right spur of motivation I needed to start making plans for a personal newsletter and podcast, and getting back into watercoloring. Basically all the projects that I keep brewing at the back of my mind, but never had the time or headspace to really consider. On this day, I also found out that I did not have COVID-19, which meant I had essentially canceled all my plans for nothing. I can't say I regret it, though. My idyllic weekend was amazing. I also couldn't help but imagine that this was perhaps the Moldavite's way of clearing my schedule. Day 7. Another uneventful day, the last before I took off my Moldavite ring. To be honest, I was kind of disappointed that nothing that extreme happened, or perhaps I need to give it more time. I think the difficulty with a week is that there are changes. You might be too close to notice it, Donlin said when I told her about my experiment. Sometimes its effects are immediate, and sometimes you don't really notice much at all. But when you look back on your life, a year later or 6 months later, you realize, wow, a lot of things did change for the better. Stina Garbus, a professional psychic and longtime crystal healing enthusiast, told me that she believes crystals work more on your mood and experience rather than hitting you brick to face with unexpected changes. Moldavite especially can help those who have goals but have trouble achieving them. First, get a clear idea of your goal and the potential barriers. Then you can allow Moldavite to work its charm and get rid of those barriers, she said. So it's basically practicing more mindfulness, which is almost always a good idea. It's all about mindset and what you get out of your sessions when you're using your crystal, she said. I'd like to think that Moldavite helped me catch a breather over the weekend and forced me to get started on personal projects I've been procrastinating on. Even though my week-long experiment has come to an end, I'm inclined to keep my Moldavite on for a little while longer just to see what else it has in store for me. What's the worst that could happen?
If all radio stations in town were palm trees, we'd be the one with the biggest coconuts.
Here are the one, the only Dead Zone.
Okay, let's go ahead and give Seika, I don't know, we'll ask.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear that.
Okay, can you hear?
Hello?
Oh, that was loud. Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
Okay, what happened?
I can, Lee. Great, thanks.
All right. Well,
I don't know. I guess I just had to reset my my headset up again for Facebook because I use it, but I think it was set up. So I just had to go into the settings and reset it. So all good now.
All good. Oh, good. Well, it's been a year, hasn't it?
At least a year. I think we were supposed to actually do a show this time last year.
Right. And something happened, I guess. Yeah. So,
but yeah, I think you were busy or
who knows?
Worries.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah. Who knows? So what have you been up to? I mean, I know you got a lot going on now, right?
Oh, well, here and there. Yeah, I mean, the pandemic's been pretty crap for what I normally do because all the museums are closed and there's not really any paranormal stuff going on or anything. So just trying to get by. I've been taking some museum studies courses and things just to back up my the other side of the museum stuff. So
no, I did see your post. Yeah, I
doing
saw
what you can, doing what I can.
Right, I saw your post that you've been contacted by the museum to basically start that back up again. Right, your lectures and that sort of thing.
Yeah, in May we'll
moving
hopefully forward. In May. Right now, a lot of the museums are not open.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So hopefully in May, yeah. But also too, I'm working for a really new cool place. So and I say working, I'm not being paid. It's volunteer at this point in time.
Right.
But it's got some very, very cool perks, let's just say. So we can talk about that.
Okay.
If that's
Yeah, fill us in.
So what shall we talk about this evening?
Well.
All right. Yeah. What shall we talk about?
Well, I did have one question. I know years ago, a couple of years back.
Sure.
We had we were talking about going to meeting up with each other in Gettysburg. Now,
yes,
we didn't. That didn't work out.
Gettysburg.
Did you ever go yourself though?
Not yet.
Oh, you still haven't been there yet either. Okay.
No, I didn't because No, I mean, I've been before, right? But I haven't been back since we had that conversation, and I just didn't have any time, and I thought, well, I'll save it for when we have a chance to go.
Yeah, go together, still.
Maybe in the summer.
Right.
Yeah, maybe this summer. Who knows, right?
Right.
Fingers crossed and all that. We'll see how it goes. I mean, yeah, we'll see how things pan out. But no, I haven't been since. I still definitely want to go and do a proper investigation there and take the time to spend, right, to go through and see what comes up, and then be able to analyze it, do all that fun stuff. So definitely be, a 2 or 3 day adventure to Gettysburg. And I mean, but now that us Canadians are letting you Americans over here, you guys still aren't letting us over there.
I know, right?
which I find rather amusing.
It's just crazy. The world's just total crap anymore.
I find it amusing.
Right. Yeah, the world's going
I know, it's crazy right now. But, I guess they got to try and get this pandemic under some sort of control. And really, too, I mean, we're coming into winter, so who wants to go anywhere right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
I certainly don't want to be wandering around Gettysburg out in the cold.
Right.
Yeah, so, it's not very warm in Pennsylvania, so we'll wait until the nice weather, and hopefully by then things should be much better. But yeah, so I can talk about this new gig.
Okay.
It's really cool.
All right.
It's the Boleskine House in Scotland.
Right. Oh, cool. Yeah.
So the Boleskine House, for people who may or may not be in the know, the Boleskine House, very interesting property. Originally, probably a hilltop fortress or bunker of some sort.
Right.
During the Jacobite uprising. It's on the southeast side of Loch Ness, overlooks the loch.
Oh, sweet.
And it was built, the actual house portion of it now was built in 1760 by a Colonel Archibald Campbell Fraser. And he had it for many years in the family. It was a hunting lodge. So it was secluded up on the hillside overlooking Loch Ness. So if you can imagine, in 1760, it was quite wild.
Yeah.
It's still pretty wild around there, but it was a very interesting spot. And then in 1899, the property was sold off to Aleister Crowley.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So so Aleister Crowley was in there he had it till about 1914, and he changed the property somewhat. And it had undergone a few changes over the years, but he had changed some of it. He added an oratory room. It was already there, but he created his own oratory in it. So the stories of Aleister Crowley there doing all of his ritualistic magic, the thelema, the whole sort of 9 yards, adds to the interesting flavor of the house, right? Because it said that he was doing some rituals that he didn't quite finish, and so he opened the doors for many things to come in, but didn't necessarily ask them to leave.
Right, he didn't close the door. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
So this is some of the stories that go with the house. There's a number of stories. I mean, Simon Fraser, who came a little later in the clan of Frasers, who was there, he also was picked up for treason and beheaded in London.
Oh, okay.
But it said that his ghost is still on the property, and that you can hear his head being thrown down the hall, the corridor, like a bowling ball.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So so there's some good stories there. Yeah, and these are stories that people who have lived in the property have mentioned, not necessarily knowing exactly what the hauntings are, but just some odd, strange things that have been going on. After Aleister Crowley had the property, it went into private. I mean, it was private hands, anyways, but it became a B&B for a while.
Right.
And then, oddly enough, I discovered that one of my relatives owned it in the late 1960s.
Oh.
This is the weird thing about this house. It keeps coming up in my life, right? So we found out that one of my relatives on my grandfather's side through marriage had owned the property, and he sold it to Jimmy Page.
Oh, really?
So Jimmy Page had it until Jimmy Page bought it in 1971.
That and Aleister Crowley.
So then Jimmy Page.
That may be why I recognize the name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and he bought it. Right. And that's why most people recognize it, I think, is the association with Aleister Crowley and with Jimmy Page.
Right.
Although Jimmy Page really didn't live in the property. He was there maybe periodically.
Right.
But he had a friend who stayed and essentially oversaw the property. It did fall into a state of disrepair during that time.
Right.
Jimmy Page sold it in, I believe it was 1991 or somewhere thereabouts, to a family from Holland, I believe, and they had it as a summer house, and they came over in the summer and they stayed there, and the house had a number of fires. There was a fire when they were there. Apparently somebody had left, and either the heating system, the burner in the heating system caught fire, had created a fire in the back portion of the property.
Right.
And that was small-ish, not enough to end the property. But then we get this other weird story where the house had been, it had burned, they had left, the property sat empty for quite a number of years. It went into disrepair. And so the person that owns it now, he and his wife were vacationing in Scotland at the time and driving around and actually saw the property and saw it for sale.
Right.
And so he purchased it because it was, again, a property of Aleister Crowley and that. So, there was an interest in the property. He purchased it in April of 2019. And then on July 31st of the same year, 2019, the house had such a drastic fire that it was completely destroyed, to the point where very little was salvageable in terms of the internal part of the house. The outside is solid stone.
Yeah, so it's fine.
So that was at least the forgiving part of it. But the roof was completely burned, but oddly enough, on my birthday, July 31st of 2019. So the house caught fire. Yeah, again, there's some odd, strange things. So then I happened to see a friend of mine who had made a post about Belaskin House, and I was like, oh, wow, what's this? Okay, let me check it out. So I looked at it and I joined as a membership, and I was like, I'm interested in the house and its history and all of the different things. And so I sent an email out giving them, sort of laying out my credentials of, I have a background in archaeology and the paranormal and, all the other stuff that I do. And so they asked me if I would be interested. I said, well, I'd be happy to volunteer in whatever capacity. And so they were like, well, we can't just get you to answer people's emails like that.
Yeah.
So they gave me the it's like, so they were like, no. So I'm actually now the historical content creator for the Belaskin House.
Very
so
cool.
I'm responsible for putting the history of the house out there, for the public and for public consumption, and to tell the history of the house, all of the history, not just Aleister Crowley and Jimmy Page, as cool as that is.
Yeah.
The house has such a vast, interesting, varied history, and there's a family cemetery as well on the grounds. So I believe it's now 22 acres. Originally the property was 100.
Right.
But the owner of the property has created a foundation, a not-for-profit foundation, and they're currently restoring the home. So through donations and through fundraising efforts, they've been able to bring in actual stonemasons that know how to create, the old world style of carving, stone lintels and window frames, and that. So they're actually returning the property to, as close to 1760, or probably between 1760 and 1800 as they can get.
That is awesome.
Without, of course, having to have. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. And right now they've got a big fundraiser on for Raise the Roof. So they're trying to raise £25,000 to put the roof back on the house. It's ready to go now. They've got all the outside walls replaced, all rebuilt, and they salvaged as much as they possibly could from the original home. And then what they couldn't salvage, they sold. So interestingly enough, they had pieces of the burnt timbers from the roof and pieces of the stonework and the masonry, and you could purchase them for like £35 or whatever as a piece of memorabilia. Because if you're a big fan of Jimmy Page or Aleister Crowley or just history in general, it was a really neat way to try and raise some money. But yeah, so now they're hoping. They did really well on Halloween. They had 3 walking tours of the property on Halloween, which was so cool. I wish I could have been there. It was pouring. It was pouring with rain. Perfect Scottish evening, right?
Yeah.
Pouring with rain.
Right.
With Loch Ness as your backdrop.
Right.
And you got to tour the cemetery and go through the grounds. And so they did really well. They raised £2,000 towards the raising the roof for that. They had quite a few people out, which was really, really great. So I'm super psyched about this job because it's a really cool opportunity for me to just bring a lot of my expertise, but also the paranormal side of things. So it's kind of on the books right now for me to go over in the spring.
Yes, that's what
and do a paranormal walkthrough and investigate on the property. So with my mediumship ability, and that will hold an actual proper paranormal investigation, and cool. I might even pull a seance in there as well.
Cool.
Yeah, while we can. So we'll see what it conjures up, literally. But yeah, it's a really, really neat spot. So if anybody's interested and is listening to the show when we're out there, it's the Boleskine House. You can look it up on boleskinhouse.org.
Right.
And
of course,
check it out. It's like, if you're a fan of Aleister Crowley, Age. Yeah.
And of course,
very cool.
All the pieces that were sold off.
People.
All the pieces that were sold off, of course, they're not haunted or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, right? I haven't been over there, so it's really hard to say what's going on. I mean, I can't wait to get over there and spend time. I'm going to be able to stay on the property too, which is going to be one of the coolest aspects of it. I think being able to actually spend time and stay on the property. There's a gatehouse that's livable. So
it would be totally awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know? I'm sure you do. Do you know Rick McCullum? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Hollywood Ghost Hunters.
I've heard. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he literally loves going over to Scotland there, going overseas. I mean, that's his go-to thing. He loves doing that.
Nice.
And I thought, well, dang, that
Well, maybe
how awesome would it be if you guys got together and did and I'm sorry, I can't talk.
Mm-hmm.
Did an investigation. How cool would that be? That would be so cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, right? We're looking at ways to obviously bring the history back to the house, and I mean, I would be up for that. If you can send me, if you have any info for him, or even a contact, maybe I'll reach out to him, and then I'll talk to the owner and everything, and we'll see if maybe we can set something up for the spring and build a show around it, even, right? Do an investigation and put do a live podcast or a live show.
That would be totally awesome.
From the location, which would be really great. I mean, it's really it's really an amazing spot. And the one interesting thing is that there's in the song Remains the Same, the Led Zeppelin movie, there was a shot of Jimmy Page sitting on the side of the river, and he turns around and his eyes are glowing red, and a lot of people thought that was at the Boleskine house, and it wasn't. But his moment where he's climbing the hillside and to get to the top where the hermit is standing, that is out behind the Boleskine house.
That is.
So that whole piece was filmed on the property of the Boleskine house. So that was a pretty cool, and when you see that hillside that Jimmy was climbing, it's pretty precarious. Like I give the guy props, because he actually climbed that. Right. And it's quite precarious back there. It's pretty steep, and so props to him for getting up there, and for the cameraman and stuff too. I mean, this is we're talking the 1970s here, so we're not we don't have a little handheld cameras like we do now, or our phone. These guys were using film cameras to film this. This was not so very cool. I mean, there's the cemetery there is really, I'm so intrigued. I can't wait to go through the cemetery. There's a number of stories again too, like the house itself, where it's built. They had an archaeological walkthrough done, I believe, last year in the fall, and I wish I had have been able to be there at the time. But they, looking at the structure of the home, they believe that there was a part of it that was already a block, like I say, either a lookout or fortress or some sort of block structure during the Jacobite uprising in the 1740s. Right. And then that's what Fraser used to build onto. But the interesting part about that is there's also a story that says that before anything was built there, in terms of a home or that, there was a kirk on the hill there, which is a church in Scotland, right? They call it a kirk. Right. And that would have gone back to, I believe it was the 1600s, late 1600s. Wow. And that the kirk caught fire with the congregation inside.
Oh, inside. Oh, man.
So inside, right? So that's one of the stories. Whether or not it's verifiable, I've been looking at a lot of the old records and the old kirk records, because the parish itself is known as Boleskine, which is why in a way the house is called Boleskine, but in Scottish Gaelic the house is Tybal Fleshkin, which it really means the square house or the block house. Right, so it makes some sense. But so there's that. And then inside the cemetery, which is just down the hill, and now there's a roadway running between the two property. Like, it's the same property, but there's a roadway now running through. The cemetery is down below by the roadway, and it sort of looks out over Loch Ness. It's had a kirk in there as well. So there was a small chapel, and there was said to be people buried under the floor of the chapel. The chapel has since, it also caught fire, apparently. There are some stone walls still, but yeah, it is. So this property has a history of fires,
bad things,
and it's we're hoping that with the new build and the restoration work, that this is not going to happen in future. And that what happened in 2019, it seems that some people had gone to the property and perhaps were performing some sort of, rituals to maybe contact Aleister Crowley or, something. We don't know. And they may have left candles burning, or they may have, there may have been other issues there. But there was definitely something that caused the fire on the property, and it wasn't, it wasn't like supernatural, right? In nature, it was human factor there. in both cases with the fire. But some of the other stories about the fire in the kirk, and perhaps the other fire in the other kirk in the cemetery, those may be more speculative, just because it sensationalizes the overall
I was going to say
story behind the house.
The congregation being burned in the church, that does seem kind of like, right. I mean, maybe someone got, one or two patrons were called in, that the others got out. I mean, unless someone literally barred the door.
It's possible, and right, and that's kind of, we're not sure, right? But I'm looking at the old records, the old parish records, and I'm not really seeing anything that's giving us this indication. And I'm fairly certain that if the church actually burned, there would be a record within the parish of the church burning.
Yeah.
But it could also be predating any records that have been kept.
Right.
So there is that aspect as well, because the records that are on file seem to be more from the 18th and 19th century and less from prior to that.
Right.
So it is a very, it is a story in the area, and to every story there is some
degree of truth,
right? Whether it's very minor or not.
Right.
It comes from something. So whether or not it was actually that building or kirk that burned, or perhaps during the Jacobite uprising, if it was known as a place for the Jacobite rebels, that maybe somebody torched it then,
right?
And not that to say there was anybody in it at the time, but perhaps just to burn the structure to try and dissuade the uprising. But there's just a number of things. So there's a lot of research that will be going into that side of things to get the story. But interestingly enough, I've been putting together just short 3 to 4 minute videos on the history of the property. The first one I think is going to hit YouTube and social media next week. I'm not in charge of that. I don't do the marketing for it, but
do you know what the address
I did
would
do
be?
The video.
What would the
and
address
so this
be?
is just sort of Well, the first video is just really the topography of Scotland and sort of introducing you to Scotland for those that aren't familiar, and just the location for the Boleskine House. The next one is on the actual Jacobite uprising, and then I'll start talking about the Colonel himself, Fraser, who built the home, and then we'll get into the occupants of the home. So there'll be a video with Lester Crowley and Jimmy Page and all of those things too. So, and then the last video will be what's happening.
What I'm saying is, what's the address that they can go to find these videos? I mean, are you going to have the link on your website, or are you going to have a link on Facebook?
I'm sure that there'll be a link on the website, right? So the BoleskineHouse.com. So just Boleskine House, and I'll spell it just because it is it's not spelled how it sounds. It's BOLESKINE. Boleskine.
Boleskine House.
Right.
Okay.
So you would think it was Boleskine if you were, but it's BoleskineHouse.org.
Right.
.org.
Well, and again.
And also you can look it up on their social media, Facebook as well.
Speaking of, I do this every time that we talk. Your name, I can never get it right. I can never get it right. I mean,
there you go. We should probably introduce myself to people, right?
Yeah, because when I first started, I was like, no, we're gonna call. I can't. Whatever, we're gonna call and find out. So yeah, I mean, I do it all the time.
Seika.
It
is Seika.
It is Seika. Okay. Man.
Seika. Yeah.
I did the same thing with Mark Rahe or something, or Richard Ray. Never mind. Richard Rye, and that was wrong. Completely wrong. It was spelt whatever. Anyway. There
you go.
Man.
Well, my name is Seika. Yes.
Yes.
Seika, and the last name is Groves, and you can check out my website is seikagroves.com. That's my archaeological and all of those sides of things. My paranormal side of things is on halfpennydreadfuls.com. So that's a pretty easy one, Half Penny Dreadfuls.
Right.
And
how did your tours
I'm also
go?
going to be on a bunch of I am on some TV shows. What's that?
You're on some TV shows. Which ones?
I do. I have a couple of TV shows right now.
The Travel Channel?
They're not paranormal, though. They're historical in nature.
Okay.
There's, I think, on History Channel, actually, the History Channel. I think it's T&E and BBC, and it's all over the place. The first show that I was on was called Phantom Signals.
Cool.
And I say first show, it's just I'm working for a very cool company now called Go Button Media. So I've been doing some shows with them. So Phantom Signals, I'm actually talking on Phantom Signals about the Colossi of Memnon in Egypt and the singing statue in Egypt.
Right.
That one, and that's, I don't know what episode number. It's just Phantom Signals, and it's, yes. The other show that I was just on was Secret Nazi Bases.
Yeah.
Secret Nazi Bases.
That's cool.
I'm on a new one coming up called Secret Nazi Expeditions.
Wow.
That's coming out, I think, January 2022. And then they're doing a new show about death rituals around the world, and I don't know the working title for that one yet, and I have yet to shoot that one yet. So that'll be upcoming as well. But the other ones are all on, most of the well-known, like I say, History Channel, T&E, BBC in Europe, and a number of other different stations. So so you can see me in momentary. I've some, depending on the shows. I'm an expert on the shows.
Right.
So I'm looking at it from an archaeological viewpoint as opposed to paranormal.
Right.
So it's an interesting juxtaposition to be able to present from both sides, because when I do go on archaeological expeditions, which I don't do as much anymore, but when I used to, I was able to get a very different picture than just a non, I don't know how to say it,
just
a non-perceptive person, I guess.
Okay, I get it, yeah. I mean, I know you're friends, actually. With, you're friends.
So a muggle.
Yeah. Yeah. You're actually friends with the person that got me on Paranormal Night Shift, Tobin Long. So is he the associate producer in one of the shows? Or,
okay.
Yes or no? Is he?
I don't know. Not on the show that not on the shows that I'm currently working on. But right. So it's interesting that I mean, I look at shows when people ask me about doing shows, because I do get asked, and I don't accept every show that's thrown at me. I mean,
right.
It's
right.
It's kind of it has to make sense to me, and it has to be something that is valid, that I have a relationship with. Right. So in terms of paranormal shows, I mean, I've been approached many times by different paranormal shows, and honestly, for the most part, I turn them down.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't have a respect for them, but at the end of the day, I find that what happens with the shows is, especially the television shows, they're greatly sensationalized for
yes.
TV.
Yes.
And so, so they are. And I mean, some shows are better than others.
Yeah.
But, I kind of have to look at my professional side of things too, because I have to be able to remain relevant in terms of my museum work and my archaeology work and that. And as much as I love the paranormal, and I do a ton of it, I also have to look at how I'm presented by shows, and
that makes sense.
Yeah, and it sort of becomes Yep, it becomes a sort of a precarious thing, because if I don't feel that shows are genuinely interested in how I'm portrayed and they just want it there for the sort of sensational, side of things,
Right, just to make money.
I'm not very interested in doing this show.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a snob or,
No, not at all. Not at all. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah. It's just that, some shows are just there for being that way and other shows are not. And I have done a couple of those shows early on in my, tenure of appearing on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've taken what I've told them and they've twisted it around and they've completely told the story.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, and they've told the story, and unfortunately the actual story is so much more compelling than the Hollywood,
right,
version of what they want to portray. But it is what it is, right?
Yeah, we've talked about that many times on the show here. As they took my story and they did a take on it with their actors, their take on it. I mean, it was basically what happened, but it was so they have to do this for ratings if they want to stay on the channel, right? But
yes,
yes. I know what you mean. No, I get it. I do get it.
And that is it. Yeah. And so for me, like, if my face is attached to the show in any way, I have to be a little bit more, picky and pick and choose what I'm doing these days in order to, because I don't want to jeopardize
your career.
My
I get it.
credibility is the biggest thing, right? I've spent a lot of years getting to where I am, and while I know that most people see these shows as, fun, and it's like, they're like, oh, must be so great to be on these shows, and it's so cool, and it's so...
Yeah, right.
And, it's a lot of work, as you know, and it's a lot of hours, especially when you're doing paranormal investigation.
Yeah.
And then you turn over your materials to the producers, and then they just kind of decide to go crazy with it. And... it can really make or break what you do. So I'm very careful now. Like, I do a lot of historic shows like Secret Nazi Expeditions. These are talking about, historical incidences and things that actually are credibly, we're able to verify. But at the same time, there's still quite an occult tilt to a lot of the Nazi
to Germany,
stuff. And I am no Nazi expert. I will just let people know that I'm not brought on the show to talk about the Nazis. I'm brought on the show to talk about the locations and the things that they found and those kinds of things, the artifacts that they stole and hoarded and that. So I'm not there to discuss the political side of the Nazis or anything like that.
Right.
I'm brought in strictly as an archaeologist and a historian from that technicality. So for me, it's fun. So I'm really looking forward to the new show that's going to be coming out, which is, as I say, based on death rituals around the world.
Right.
Which for me is a big part of what I do in my museum presentations.
Right.
And if there's any people who listen to your show that are museums that would like to bring me in, I'm able to travel. I have my passport for the United States, but I also I'm a Canadian, but I'm also have dual citizenship for the UK, so I'm legally able to work in the UK as well.
There you go.
But I would be more than happy to bring some of my very interesting and macabre presentations to your museums, and
absolutely.
I guarantee
they are.
I guarantee that Bob is always a sensation. My Victorian mummy unwrapping is very, very popular.
Right.
So and I have a new mummy added to my roster now. Pete, who is a bog mummy.
Right.
And so that's a very different type of mummy to present. And
I recall that story.
it's a lot of fun what I do. I mean, I love doing it. And I also talk about, again, the sort of the dark side of those things.
Yeah.
But I also go into museums and I do paranormal investigations in museums, which is really fun. We've done a lot of public. Opened them to the public and gone to various museums and had a 2 or 3 hour investigation period where we bring a very small group of the public. It's usually 15 to 20 people in, and they're broken into groups, and so we have a lead for each group, and we work in different parts of the buildings so that we're not bumping into each other. We're not crossing over in terms of sound and soundscapes and that. And it's very controlled, but it really gives people an opportunity who watch TV shows or have an interest in it, but they don't know what to do, or they don't know how to go about doing something. And so they get to come out in a very controlled environment and learn, and at the same time experience, under a controlled, and when I say controlled environment, I mean, we're obviously not controlling the spirits that are there, but we're just controlling the ability to, like one of my first lines anytime when I open and talk to people is always, if something happens and you're scared, do not scream and do not run.
Relax. If you can
you've got a team.
Spirits, then oh man,
that's it, right? You've got an right, and you've got an expert with you. There. So if something, that's why your expert is there, that you go to your expert. And again, it's small control groups, so there may only be 5 or 6 people in a group. So if you're all together and you're in an area and something happens, it's like, don't scream, don't run. It's really just, say to, this happened, or I felt something touch me, or, it feels cold, or it's like, use your voice, but don't freak out, because I've seen the way people can react when they're not expecting it.
And it can be mass hysteria too. One person can trigger everybody to just lose it, and that's right. And so that's why I say it's a great opportunity, but it's also really great for the museums too, right? It brings people in that normally wouldn't come into the museum, and at the same time it offers the ability for people to come in under a controlled investigation, and then they can come back to the museum on their own time as well. And not all museums are open to this, but I do find that some of the small town community museums are really open to these kinds of things, and even talking about particular artifacts that they have on site. There's always a story, I find, with the smaller museums, that there's something haunted in their collection, or they so we may come in and we may do an investigation around that object, or something too, right? And it's a really great way to introduce the public, like I say, to the museums in their communities, or in the next community over, or wherever it may be, within an hour or so drive, and to really just offer something that's more than just going to the museum in the daytime and looking at stuff, right? So it's kind of the best of both worlds for the museums. And like I say, some of them are not open to it, and that's okay too, right? I mean, it's some museums view themselves in ways that they feel that that's not professional, or it's not, they don't want to be associated with that, and that's cool too. But it does really offer a lot for the museums that are open to it. We've always had very successful programs, and evenings and great stories, and being able to come together at the end of the night, because we always do that. At the end of the night, we make sure that we have a 2-hour investigation window, and then we have a 1-hour sit down at the end of and so everybody can talk about their experiences, and that I think is a really great way to open up paranormal investigation to people who honestly wouldn't have the opportunity, or maybe they're afraid, or they they're curious, but they
they don't feel that they're ready to, try it themselves,
Right.
or do anything like that. So I think it can be a lot of fun, and I think that
I'm sorry. The last 2 years we haven't done, as rural Indiana Paranormal, we used to before the pandemic at the library or what have you. We would hold something like that. Paranormal bare bones 101. We would teach people how to do an investigation without all the crazy expensive equipment and all that kind of thing. And we had a great time.
Equipment.
Yeah, all the crazy expensive
exactly.
stuff. Yeah, and we had heard wonderful stories from people that would show up, and it was great, big fun. Hopefully, we'll do it again next year.
Yeah, and I think I know that's it, right? It's like, hopefully one day we'll be able to do all these things again. Right. And that's kind of the interesting thing. But I look forward to those things, and I look forward to getting back out there and doing investigations and doing things. And I mean, honestly, right now it's something that could be done, but I'm not really ready yet to deal with sort of the masses at this point. And like I said, here especially, like a lot of our museums are not open yet. The small community museums are still not open because they don't have the space like the large national museums that are huge, and they can bring a certain amount of people in, and everybody can still safely distance and mask and With the small museums, they just don't have that opportunity.
Right.
And I know, I know it varies from, wherever you are, but I know that here, most of my museum connections, while the museums are technically open, they're not really open, right? Like you might get the odd person coming in and that, but they're not really hosting or doing any events or having any kind of presentations or anything just yet. So let's hope 2022. Yeah, that's the year coming, right? I don't even know anymore. I'm like, what year is it?
Yeah. It's close. Yeah.
It's like, well, what year are we in? So it's just the craziest time, right? It's I mean, you think about it, right? When we're long gone, I know my kids will be able, to be, when they're old, they can tell their kids or grandkids, it's like, remember the pandemic?
The great pandemic, yeah.
It's like the great pandemic, that was not great.
Yeah.
But and that's sort of the funny thing too, like talking about that, how very different it is this time from when it was in 1918 and the Spanish influenza and I mean, there was so many more deaths during that period, but there was so much less travel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was nobody getting on planes and traveling around the world and doing all that. So this pandemic back then, other than the First World War, because that's sort of what kicked off that pandemic, right? Was the soldiers coming back and that. But for the most part, the population, like the Spanish flu, did not really have the impact that this one has, because we have people flying all over the world, and so many more countries are affected, and it's ongoing. And I mean, while we've got better options today, we still have a lot. I think it's a much harder pandemic to handle currently.
Yeah, and
just in terms of where it is, right? It's kind of,
social media doesn't help either. You know what I mean? It just spread lies and I mean, my God.
No, well, yeah. Again, right? I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like I step back from all of that, because I'm just doing my thing, right? So it's like, if you want to do something else, that's your business. Like, honestly, it really is. But at the end of the day, this is just a very different situation from what it was 100+ years ago, right?
Oh yeah.
And so it's something that, because of the travel, the international travel, that I think it's gotten to places that normally, pandemics probably wouldn't have. Usually when you talked about pandemics, it was like you would have the bubonic plague and it would kind of go through Europe and, places like that. Right. And people on this side of the world at that time, the indigenous population, they had no idea. They were like, what? We're living in our own fantastic world over here. You dirty Europeans, you kill each other with your infections. But but it is what it is. We'll just we ride it out as best we can, and then hopefully eventually we can get back to all of the things that we were doing before, and or some kind of normal, whatever that might be. I mean, I have faith in humanity despite all the despite social media. Let's just say, don't look at social media. But outside of that, I mean, I'm looking forward to doing a few things next year that obviously we haven't been able to do, and hopefully one of those things we'll be able to get to Gettysburg and do that investigation and do a podcast around it.
Man, that would be so cool.
Which would be fantastic, and hopefully get to Scotland, and it would, and hopefully get to Scotland and do that walkthrough and spend my time there doing not just for the paranormal side of things, but just in general for the Boleskine House and all of the other things that go with that. So so I mean, in the meantime, we forge forward and we do what we do.
Do what we do. Absolutely. Oh, we're out of time. I'm sorry, I have to cut you off, man. I will.
We do what we do. We are.
Yeah.
No worries.
I will send you the information for Rick McCollum. I know he would love to hear from you and talk about what we talked about.
Yes, please do.
And if you want, we'll have you back. And we'll also talk about Gettysburg too.
Right. Yeah. No, that would be fantastic.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll talk about Gettysburg because we need to do that. And we'll do all those.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All
for being
right.
on.
Well, thank you again for having me on. And and we're making this a yearly thing.
Yeah. Well, we're going to shorten that up this time. Okay. But thank you again, and we will talk to you soon.
I think so.
Okay. You still there?
All right, Lee. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure. I'll talk to you again soon. Okay, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yes, I am. Have a good night.
This is the Dead Zone Paranormal Radio Show.
Thanks for listening.